Al, we have news to talk about this week.
We do. We were going to talk about last week if it existed, but it didn't.
It didn't exist, but it existed this week.
Mm-hmm.
So we pushed back our recording day to talk about this specific thing, and then
Mm-hmm.
we're also going to talk about another thing.
Yep. Two
After the fact.
things.
Two things.
Look at us.
Look at us.
Multitasking-ish.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Seasonal Anime Checkup, OVA. It's a podcast where we have conversations about video games, anime, and manga. Hello, I'm Jared, joined as always by Doc Al and Ladium.
Hello.
This is episode 195.
Wow.
That's a lot of episodes.
Yeah, it is a lot of
So
episodes.
many.
Didn't you say we're coming up on our anniversary of when we started this?
Yeah, I don't know when,
I don't either.
but I'm gonna look it up right now.
We've been doing this for a while, kiddos.
Kiddos,
Yeah, I don't know why I said kiddos.
you youths.
The youths.
Why are you doing stupid things, search bar? It's like, here's all these results, and then it was like, no results found. I'm like, you are completely wrong.
It's lying to you.
It really is.
Don't let it lie to you. Make it tell the truth.
Tell me the truth. The truth.
The truth?
The truth.
Like Max Tooth.
Like Max Tooth. And now this is going to load slow because that's just how things go.
You know, things happen. Could be worse. Could be Loki stepping on a caps lock.
The 30th
Of September?
of September
Wow.
is
We are
our 4-year anniversary.
rapidly coming up on that.
We are rapidly coming up on that. Anyways, we got to talk about the PlayStation 5. Sony had a big event today.
They did.
As of this recording. Of course, last week was the leaks of the Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S price announcements. They did confirm the Xbox Series X after we recorded that last week, so that is also official.
Yep.
Pricing and all that is exactly what was rumored and everything. And then Sony was like, "Hey, we're gonna do a thing as well, guys.
Yay.
Please come join us."
They stopped playing chicken.
They did because Microsoft had to kind of do their thing. So let's talk about that event they just did. They talked for 40 minutes. They didn't really talk, actually. They just showed a bunch of trailers and then showed some screens afterwards.
And then a lot of people had to clarify things on Twitter after.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Well,
Yeah.
let's dive into some of those clarifications immediately. First up, Square Enix showed off Final Fantasy 16.
Yep.
The next numbered iteration of the Final Fantasy. So it looks a lot of like they are like Final Fantasy is now an action RPG series.
Yep, it is.
That is what you can basically say. More fantasy looking than a lot of previous installments have been recently.
Yeah, it's way more like fantasy. Although it looks, and I hate that I'm going to say this because it makes me really sad. It looks like they're kind of going for like a weird Game of Thrones-ish type of aesthetic.
A lot of people were saying like it is kind of like that, like a Witcher,
Yeah.
like a Dark Souls. But yeah, like that is kind of the motif they're going for. So yeah, like it looks like immediately as soon as those characters showed up, I was like, "That's a Final Fantasy looking character," and then it was like,
Yeah.
"Here's a chocobo," and I was like, "Yep, that's Final Fantasy 16, all right."
Yep.
So yeah, like combat is basically more in line with what 15 and 7 remake were basically. Whole lot of summons you saw. You saw Shiva, and Ifrit, and probably some others in there. One of the characters, one of the
It's
main
like Phoenix,
characters,
maybe.
yeah, one of the main characters basically says the Hero Yui line from Gundam Wing with the same kind of like cadence. So I'm real excited to be playing as Hero Yui in a Final Fantasy game. I really hope when he says "I'll kill you," he prefaces that by ripping up an invitation.
And wiping a tear away.
Yes. And the music just dramatically picks up.
Amazing.
So yeah, it's Final Fantasy 16. There's no date attached to it. Obviously,
Nope.
they put out a blog saying like, "Hey, we're not going to talk about this again until next year." The interesting things about this game, and this was what the rumors about this game were in particular. Hang on, give me 1 second here to look something up. That's how I make noises.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, one of the rumors going into this was that Final Fantasy 16 was being done by Creative Business Unit 3, which they basically confirmed in the trailer.
Yeah.
That is the team led by Naoki Yoshida, who is the director of Final Fantasy 14, and the guy who basically came in and turned that ship around to make it one of the most successful games that Square has right now.
Mm-hmm.
He is a producer on this game. The director of it is one of the assistant directors for Final Fantasy 14. And then there's also rumors that like the writers of Heaven's Ward, the first expansion pack for 14, are also on this as well.
Yeah.
And then also one of the designers from Devil May Cry 5 jumped ship to Square Enix like a few months prior and is basically supposedly working on this game as well, which is why kind of like that the action or like the gameplay, the combat, there's the word I'm looking for, looks kind like you could basically say like it looks very character action-esque.
Yeah.
In the way that like I was like, hey, what if they should have made Final Fantasy VII Remake like that? And if you're getting one of the dudes who made DMC5 on this,
Yep.
like that's pretty enticing and exciting to hear.
I mean, that's basically what we were saying in that, but I didn't see anything about a party, and that's kind of bummer-ish.
Yeah.
Like, if it's just me doing this, I'm going to be real mad.
It's like, and that seems to be like how 7 Remake kind of does it, where like you control one character, but you can hot swap between the others.
Yeah, but there wasn't anybody else there.
Yeah, but it is a first reveal trailer, so
Fact.
who knows
Yeah.
how much of that's actually going to be real or not. But yeah, I am cautiously optimistic for this. I didn't like 15. I didn't like the demo for 7 Remake, but like the team behind this game makes me want to be cautiously optimistic for it.
I am going to underline and bold cautiously on my part.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I've fallen for their way too much at this point that I'm like, oh, maybe it'll be okay. And then it's not. It's just not. We'll see.
Listen, the director of this game also worked on The Bouncer.
I know, I pointed that out to you.
What if this is just technically just a sneakily way to make a sequel to The Bouncer?
Oh my god. Fantasy medieval bouncer.
The prequel to The Bouncer.
Perfect.
So they mentioned at the end of the trailer this is a console exclusive, but it was also coming to PC as well.
Yes.
Well, apparently after that they also removed that line from the trailer they put up. So I've seen people say like, oh yeah, it is technically coming to PC as well, but like again, what are they doing?
It's a mess.
There's a whole lot of mess here. After that, they showed off more of Spider-Man Miles Morales. They showed some gameplay. It looks like Spider-Man.
Get to web a bridge together and save some people.
Here's the greatest hits of Spider-Man. You remember those scenes from the film where he holds things together with his webs? Well, now you can do it in the game with QuickTime events.
Yay. It looks good.
It looks good. It looks a lot like Infamous in a weird way, which is like obviously
it really
it's the
does.
same team that made that, but like it's weird. They ended this trailer by saying it's coming out in holiday 2020. That's not true. I mean, it's true, but also this is a launch game.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't say that for the trailer. I don't know why. Also, Insomniac later on Twitter was like, yeah, this is also coming out for PS4 as well.
Yeah.
So, there you go. Up next, they showed off that Harry Potter game that had been rumored for a while that WB is making. It's called Hogwarts Legacy, and I don't think there's a good time to announce anything Harry Potter related anymore.
Nope. Absolutely not. It is a very bad time for that.
I feel bad for the development team making this game.
I agree with you. I feel very bad for them because they've obviously put a lot of work into it. Like, it looks fantastic. It looks really, really good. But I feel very bad for them for being associated with it at this point.
Yeah. J.K. Rowling, she's a piece of
She sucks. Real bad.
Yeah. Maybe they somehow sneakily cut some deal where she won't make money off of this, but I highly doubt it.
I highly doubt that.
Yeah.
So, as long as she's making anything off of it, I will not get it.
Yeah.
Because absolutely her.
After that, they showed off Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, some campaign gameplay. But did you know the mid '80s were the height of the Cold War?
He says 1981. I'm like, bro, no.
Again, everyone knows the height of the Cold War is when Metal Gear Solid 3 happened in the '60s.
Well, okay, because like the Cuban Missile Crisis is literally the closest we ever got to like nuclear war.
Yes.
And that was 1962.
Yes.
That is way before 1981.
Yes.
You.
So like this seems like it's dealing with like the
War crimes?
War crimes, yes, but like Iran Contra stuff, maybe.
That's what it is. Yes.
Okay. Which, oh boy.
Yeah. That's not.
Also, an RC car can go like 70 miles an hour apparently in this.
Which is insane.
Yeah, man. I've had fun with Call of Duties before, but like, God, this whole game just seems like they're setting themselves up for just a mess. And especially after the last game where they tried to retcon like this really bad historical war crime. So like, ugh.
Yeah, this is a terrible, terrible idea.
But don't worry, they got
Zombies
and that really creepy looking Ronald Reagan that you get to be pals with and do war crimes for.
I'll say, like, as soon as you become pals with Ronald Reagan, you're absolutely doing war crimes.
Yep.
Like, that's just the truth.
Mm-hmm. They showed off some more of Resident Evil 8 Village, or I guess a little bit. They showed a creepy old lady who I thought was Inyaba. I was like, that's just Inyaba. What are you doing?
Oh my god. And they had like the weird like Tim Burton-esque animation going on there.
Yeah, that was weird. They
That
didn't show
was
any
really weird.
of the Beef Man.
No, but
I didn't see.
I heard
they heard
Chris.
him. Yeah.
I heard they say Chris, and I was like, oh, well, this is Resident Evil. And
Yeah.
like the bad thing is that like Chris has a very common name. So for me to hear something about Chris and then me be like, oh, that's Resident Evil, like that's what is my brain?
You know about the Beef Man. That's a game.
Yeah, that sure is a game.
They showed off a little bit more about Deathloop, the spy versus spy-esque first-person shooter. That game got pushed back to Q2 2021. After that, they showed off Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition.
Which they spoiled something big.
Yeah, that was weird. You can
Very
play as
weird.
Virgil in this game.
You can.
Which this IGN article is misspelled.
Oops. That game still rules.
It's really good. The PS5 version will have a turbo mode attached to it and a new difficulty along with the everything else in the playable Virgil. The Virgil DLC will come to current gen consoles for like I think it's $5, but you don't get the turbo mode or the new difficulty. But like,
Yeah.
So there's that. They showed off more of Oddworld Soulstorm.
Mm-hmm.
After that, they showed off a Five Nights at Freddy's game, which is real weird. I mean, that game is real popular, but like I don't think I would have ever imagined it to be on like a console event type thing.
I know nothing about it other than it exists, and so I'm just kind of like, all right, that's a thing.
Yeah,
Yeah. The breathing made me very uncomfortable.
it's interesting.
It made me very uncomfortable.
They showed off some Demon Souls.
They did. They
Weirdly
made it look super easy.
Yeah, like that was so bizarre. It was just like, oh, one hit killing these enemies, one hit killing these enemies. Oh, this is real tame and easy. It's like one enemy coming at you at a time. Like that's not how this game plays.
No, that's not how that game plays.
And then you got killed by a boss, and it said you died in really poor font.
And I was like, yeah, that is how this game plays.
Then like after they showed like kind of like a sizzle reel of like some of the other bosses in the game. Like the game looks really good. The depth of scale on those bosses look real good as well. They also mentioned at the end of the trailer for this during the presentation that this was coming to PC as well. And then after the presentation, they're like, no, this isn't coming to PC. So like,
What are they doing?
that's a great question. Like man, a lot of this really feels like they kind of scrambled to rush this together because of what happened last week. Like they're probably obviously going to do something here soon, but like they were like, oh, we got to do this now instead of waiting.
Which is crazy pants. They should have had this together already.
Yeah. Fortnite's coming to PS5.
Yeah.
Because of course.
Yeah, of course.
They announced the PlayStation Plus collection, where you'll be able to play PS4 games on your PS5 if you're a PlayStation Plus member at no additional cost, apparently. But like, it was a lot of like first-party games, some scattering of third-party games, but like a lot of older titles.
Yeah.
So like, not the greatest collection, and nothing like new. So like, if you're gonna make this your Game Pass competitor, like that's not a good start.
I would expect better than that.
Yeah.
But, whatevs.
Then they announced pricing and date.
Sure did.
So the regular disc-based PlayStation 5 is $500 and the digital version is $400. They are coming out November 12th in the US, Japan, Canada, Mexico, Australia, New Zealand, and South Korea, and then November 19th in other territories. So 2 days after the Xbox comes out. Pricing is a little bit better than I was anticipating, but still, that is still $100 difference between the discless PS5 and the Xbox Series S.
Yeah.
So I wonder how much of that's going to be a big deal for people looking into buying these consoles.
I will say, as somebody with game retail experience, it makes a huge difference for like moms who are buying things for Christmas presents.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're like, oh, I could get the Xbox that, like, I don't know the technical spec difference, and then I can get 2 games.
Yeah.
And then the other one's like, oh, I can get the console.
Yeah.
Yay. So, it's much cheaper than I expected on both ends of the PlayStation SKUs, I guess. But yeah, I'm not sure. That's my personal take on it, but I've been out of the game for a while.
Yeah. I mean, like when the Wii U came out, people just thought it was a new Wii.
Correct.
So
they absolutely did.
Never underestimate how uninformed the general public can be when it comes to video game consoles.
Correct.
After that, they did a teaser for a new God of War that's coming out next year.
Yeah, I didn't even know what that was at first. I was like, okay. But I haven't paid attention to God of War.
Whatever.
Well, I haven't paid attention to God of War in ages, and like even when I did pay attention to it, I hated it because it was stupidly sexist.
Mm-hmm.
Like stupidly.
Well, what if now you get to be Kratos as a dad?
Is he still sexist?
I don't know. I didn't play that game.
I didn't either.
So, yeah, whatever. And then afterwards, Jeff Keighley was like, hey, this is stuff that's happening.
That was wild.
Because apparently Sony just couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Spider-Man's a launch game. Demon's Souls is a launch game.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those did not tell you that in this presentation.
Correct.
We got pricing on games. Where Sony is going to be charging $70 for first-party games.
Yep.
€80 if you're over in Europe. That's also a lot.
That's a lot.
Oh boy, this sucks.
It sucks a lot. It's not making me feel very confident about this cycle.
Mm-hmm. Like especially when like 2K first was like the first company that like was like, hey, we're probably going to be doing $70 games for next generation, and everyone was like, what? No, that's dumb. And now Sony's doing this, and unsurprisingly, you don't see as much pushback for Sony as you did for 2K. But like, it's bad. It's real not cool.
I mean, Twitter was a show when this happened because like there were so many people that I saw that were just like, "Oh, it's over now." Like Sony won immediately, and I'm like, they didn't show anything. Like, how do you? I hate
there's no
console
like
wars.
Big original game out for either console right now.
No, there's not.
Like the only one that's like an actual exclusive would be Demon's Souls if it's actually not coming to PC, and that's a remake of a game.
Right, but also like console wars are dumb.
Oh yeah, that's too. You're not wrong.
But like, I cannot believe the amount of people who are just like, "This is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my entire life." I'm like, were you born yesterday? Because I've seen a lot of good stuff, and this was not really it. Yeah. But I mean, we talked a little bit about it. Like I know that I'm gonna end up getting a PS5 at some point because, for better or for worse, most of the games I end up liking are going to be on Sony consoles.
And eventually, there will be games that you will want that will come out for these systems.
Yeah. Um. It's like I'll eventually get it, but I won't be happy about this.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely not getting it until they release some freaking games.
I would not get a discless console.
I'm never getting a discless console. That's a hard thing to say.
Like I understand like people being like, oh man, it's cheaper, so like that's cool and everything, but like, do you understand once they turn off the stores for the systems, like the console is useless?
You got nothing.
Like that's a big point that they're basically not telling you that they're going to do eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So like that will just be you'll be able to play all the games you had most likely, unless they revoke all the licenses from them. But then like after that, like you can't add any more games to that. You can't play any other games you might want to check out or anything like that. Like it's just a hunk of plastic after that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no way I would buy a discless system unless like that is the only thing I am given. I'm like, I might not even buy it then.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like that I've seen how poorly that can go.
And the fact that both companies are making discless systems, and still, I mean, at least Sony is wanting to charge you $70 for a digital game.
Yeah, no.
I think if I am Microsoft, I do whatever I can to keep game prices at 60.
Yeah, Microsoft would be smart to do that.
I mean, they have Game Pass, which like if you have Game Pass, you're going to get like first party games most likely day and date. So that's that's a good value. But like if they want to be petty, like Sony was petty at the launch of the PS4 and Xbox One and just came out and be like, yeah, all of our first party games are going to be $60 from here on out.
Yeah.
Like,
it would be a smart business decision, honestly.
yeah.
The question is, are they going to do it?
Yeah, that is the thing. So yeah, that is the PlayStation 5 reveals.
Price, date, all that shenanigans.
Price date, some games, some new games, all that shenanigans, fun stuff.
Modems.
So much information they couldn't tell you in a pre-taped presentation.
I could not believe that they were just like, oh, by the way, all this stuff is gonna happen at the end, and it's all gonna come from Twitter. Ugh.
It's real bad.
That's really a terrible idea.
It really is.
It makes you look terrible when you're like, here's all this stuff and here are these games, and you're not giving dates when they're literally supposed to be launch games. Like, you need to say this is available at launch.
Mm-hmm.
Your lineup sucks, but like, you gotta actually make it look like it doesn't suck. You gotta try.
Yeah.
This is basically the equivalent of that, like, you tried sticker. Except for they didn't try at all. Ugh. Terrible.
You attempted.
You attempted. Essentially, what happened is they pulled a me because Sony decided that they were going to release this PlayStation 5 reel, and like me, they did not turn on the lights, and they tripped over Maxwell. And
they're
then,
like, oh god, we got to tell you some more stuff.
Right.
You tripped and all your other information fell out.
And then you're laying on the floor and you're like, oh no, now I gotta actually like make this up to everybody. Oops. That's what happened. This is an actual story that happened to me, guys. I tripped over Maxwell earlier because I didn't turn on the lights. I fell on the floor.
This is coming a few hours after the fact. I was like, I don't like lights.
I don't like lights.
And then she trips over Max.
He was mad at first.
That's karma.
He was totally fine. He's like, oh, this is okay. I'm getting pets now. Oh boy. But that's basically what they did.
Yeah.
They tripped over Maxwell in the dark.
Poor Max.
I know.
Getting constantly tripped over. Like, meow,
Meow.
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 So yeah, that's the PlayStation stuff.
It happened.
It happened. Now let's talk about something else.
Uh-huh.
Let's talk about a movie.
A movie?
This film finally came out to home video
Mm-hmm.
this past week. The latest film from one Makoto Shinkai. It's called Weathering with You.
It is. I saw it in theaters in February before the entire world burned down.
Yeah.
And I've been dying for you to see it so we could talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you finally saw it.
Mm-hmm. I watched it last night after a lot of work.
Yes, after a lot of work. I watched it last night after I worked all day, but not after like a lot of immediate work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I finally get to talk about it with you. I'm excited.
I don't think I like this film.
At all?
I think it's okay at best.
Oh man.
I feel like this was a formulaic movie that Shinkai made. It basically is just the same setup that Your Name is, that 5 centimeters per second is, and it is not as good as either of those.
I will agree with you that it's not as good as either of those.
I think the idea of using climate change as a gimmick really sucks. Because he says nothing about it.
Yeah.
And like, so I think that a lot of that kind of comes from the fact that like, if I had watched this movie last year, I don't think I would be as critical of that.
Mm-hmm.
But watching it now and seeing someone in current times create a film about climate change and just say nothing about it and use it as a gimmick when literally the western side of this country is burning to the ground.
Yeah.
And climate change is a huge, huge thing, just sucks.
In his defense, though, this was not made this year.
It wasn't, but it was made last year.
Right.
And the years prior, where this is still a thing.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not climate change in the sense of like this is a natural phenomenon that's happening. It's a magical based climate change.
Right, but still, like, I think if you're going to go that route, at least say something.
Yeah, because like the interview that he's discussing this, he was basically saying that like in some of his other films he's used nature in like beautiful ways that are like it's not interfering at all, but in this sense like this was a very violent type of weather. And so that's how he was specifically trying to think of it, as like a violence. That's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see that, especially like there are multiple times that there are just like intense scenes that happen with like rain just like obliterating people. Not like dying, but and then like obviously the big scene with the weather is like extremely destructive.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean he's following his trends of like, hey, I'm gonna do some like magical realism, and I think he was inspired by climate change, but I don't think he's trying to actually say anything about climate change.
Which, and I think in that case, don't do anything about climate change then.
What do you mean?
Don't just make it a gimmick when this is a real life problem we're dealing with if you're not going to basically try and impart anything from it. Like, I think that's just a lazy writing.
Do you think that's what he was trying to do, though? I mean, like, I think he was more leaning on, like, the magical side of it.
I think he saw climate change as a thing he could utilize as a magical thing and then just went with that instead of being like, hey, this is an actual problem we're all dealing with as the world. You know, I could at least say a little bit about that instead of just being like, oh, look at the magic and this stuff. Oh. And also, like, like I said, I think he just kind of throws all that into his formula that he's made multiple movies in the same style as of now. And, like, it just didn't really do anything for me.
So I obviously liked it better than you.
Yes.
Like I said, it is the weakest of those three that we have talked about. Um, but um, I don't see it as negatively as you do. The negative that I see on this film is more of the, I guess, spoiler alert, the final decision.
Yeah, I did not like that.
Um, because I mentioned to you when I first saw it, I'm like, I'm dying to know what you're gonna think because, with your name, like Taki obviously wanted to save Mitsuha,
Mhm.
but like he also was very adamant that everybody else survives too.
Yes.
He was very adamant that that entire town evacuate. And so like while he is making a decision that will ultimately benefit him, he's not making it
He's not
just
making a selfish decision.
correct. Um whereas in this one, blanking on his name, starts with an
Hodaka.
H. Hodaka. Like he legit is just like, all right, I'm only thinking of me. That's it.
Hmm.
And it's an interesting difference, and it's a difference that I don't love.
And
I
again, I
think
think
that
like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like, I think watching that in like 2020,
mm,
man, that doesn't fly.
I think that like the whole thing is it's supposed to be like romantic, but it's really not.
No.
Um, like it's a form of, well, selfishness is actually ruining the climate. That's kind of what's actually happening. Um, but it just was a weird thing to pull off. And he was actually saying in the commentary afterwards, he's like, I don't know how this is going to go over with audiences. I don't know if it's going to go over well with Western audiences. Um, because it's ultimately not a happy ending.
No.
And like he tries to write it as a happy ending because like look, they got together. I'm like, but am I happy about it? No. And especially because it's very obviously in the same universe as Your Name.
I don't like that. I really don't like that. Like when they
Really?
showed up, I was really like, it took the immersion out of the film for me.
That's what someone else said in our server, but
Because like, I don't think that like these characters would be showing up in this film. Like it doesn't make any sense for them to show up other than to like, hey, this film was real popular. I got to insert them now just because they're popular. And this was my big thing.
he did insert a character from another of his things in Your Name though.
Yeah, but like this feels way more on the nose instead of like just being like a little cameo. It's like these are prominent characters you were seeing, not
Yeah.
obviously for a extended period of time,
Mhm.
but like they show up enough that you like know who they are, and it's not just like, oh, this is a background character.
Well, the thing that's odd to me about it is that the ending of Your Name, they meet each other on
Mm-hmm.
the stairs. Um, it is after the events of, well, the first half of the events in this film,
Mm-hmm.
that they meet each other. But canonically, that doesn't make any sense.
No, like the Wikipedia page like mentions on here like they reunite in 2022. This film, uh, the reign doesn't start until 2021. So like none of that it canonically should make sense, and like it's just a big contradiction.
Yeah, because it was super sunny when they met
Yeah,
up.
and then apparently he just said, "I just wanted to see them again before they met," which is like, come on.
um, I think that there are good elements of this movie. I
I,
really do.
I think as well there are like I don't like Hodaka as a character.
I think he's a butt.
Yeah, Hina's alright. I liked Keisuke
I
and
like him a
Natsumi. I
lot.
like those two characters a lot. Like I thought
Those
they
two
had a
characters
real fun
are
dynamic and
great.
everything. Um,
And he has like real problems that he's
yeah,
trying to figure out like what to do about them. And like he's selfish in a different way.
mhm. But like
But
he's selfish in a way that like is befitting of an adult.
yes.
Like a lot of like the way that this kind of portrays selfishness is that it's a very immature selfishness, and obviously this is a young adult drama type thing.
Right.
But just like, man, just did not really fly for me. And there's a lot of like just ways that the story is just way too convenient, especially near the end, that I just thought was just like it just took me out of it.
And which part are you talking about?
Well, spoilers.
Oh, I mentioned spoilers earlier, so
Yes.
if they're still here, it's their fault.
The whole thing with the gun,
Yeah.
where like he gets rid of it in that abandoned building, and then by the end of it, when he's back there, he's in the exact same room to find it and then utilize that as a weapon. Like I was just like, that. Come on. That's way too convenient of a plot point to utilize here to be like, oh, well, he's in the same room and he can find the gun again, and then point it at people.
He would have known it was there.
Yes and no. I don't. He's only been to that place once. How would he know the exact floor and room to be in, to know where that gun is? Especially when he haphazardly threw it away and then was just like, I don't need to remember this. And it's been an extended period of time between that original moment and near the beginning of the film and near what happens at the end.
It's literally Chekhov's gun here.
Yeah, 100%.
But I also think that given what we know about this character, he would remember that. And like he knows how to get to that building. He knows where to go in that building to get to her. And it looks like the way that it is falling apart, that there might be a specific way to get up there, and that it's through that room. That's how I read it anyway.
But I think as well you could also say that like the route that building has you'd get up to that roof has changed, because it seems like the way he's like getting up it changes. Because at one point he's like going up the stairs and like turns and stops and is like, oh crap, because there's like a bunch of debris blocking the staircase and has to change his route.
Mm-hmm.
That makes it seem like that was not the way he came originally.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like maybe I didn't see an issue with that.
To me, it just felt way too convenient. Of like, oh, we have to bring the gun back at some point because that's the thing we have kind of been mentioning here and there.
Hmm.
And it's like, oh, well, look, he just found it again. Whoa! I was just like, whatever.
Yeah, I don't think that's as stupid as you think it is. And especially when you're a young kid and you're like kind of traumatized by the fact that you almost shot somebody. Like you're gonna remember that.
You are, but the way he throws away that gun, he doesn't look where he throws it. Essentially, he just like tosses it, and then he goes on about his business. Like he would not remember exactly where he threw that gun, because he doesn't really even look at where he throws it.
And he throws it straight in front of him.
Regardless, I don't think he would remember exactly where it's going to be.
All right, we're gonna agree to disagree.
I don't think the way that, again, I just don't think he would find himself in that exact same room to find that gun at the exact same moment.
I mean, who's to say if that's not the only like floor that is really usable? Like that might be the case, if that's the only floor in that room or that building that's actually something that you can.
If that's the only floor that's usable in that building is not standing up.
Well, I mean, like it's obviously falling in on itself.
Yeah.
So it might be the only like floor that really is sturdy enough for a person to stand on. I
feel like if you're going to that route, you're really just clutching at like strings of trying to make this make sense.
But I mean, I think that it makes more sense than you think that it does.
No, I don't think it makes any sense really. I think it's just a convenient plot point to literally, as you said, utilize Chekhov's gun.
I disagree with you.
Well, we will agree to disagree.
That's what I was saying, is I will agree to disagree, because it was an important spot to him in terms of Hina. It was an important spot because of trauma.
I mean,
and
to be fair, that room isn't
building.
an important spot, though, because it's the roof that's the important spot.
Correct. But
so again, it doesn't make sense for him to magically find himself in the same exact room where he threw a gun away. Unless you are just making it convenient for the plot.
Or again, that's the way he knew how to go.
I think you're just making it convenient for the plot if you're going that route.
I'm not doing anything.
You are arguing it for that way.
I'm arguing it because it does make sense to me.
I don't think it makes sense. Again, we agree to disagree, so let's move on. Or else we're going to sit here for 10 more minutes yelling at each other.
We're not yelling. I'm not yelling at you.
I'm yelling.
Okay, you're yelling.
I'm not.
I'm not yelling at you.
Loki's going to start yelling.
I don't know where he is.
He's like, they're yelling at each other. I gotta run.
He can't hear you.
Anyways.
I know that you also haven't mentioned it. We were talking about how we like the 2 adult characters. I also like her little brother a lot.
Yes.
I think he's a very good character.
I like how they introduced him and Hodoga thinks he's a player because
A player?
he talks to like 2 different girls in the buzz. And he's like, oh my god, I can't believe this kid.
Yep.
It's really good.
And then like when he shows up at the house, he's like, "It's you!"
The kid's like, what?
And the kid's
I have
like,
no idea who you are.
Who is this guy? While he's like putting the sardines in the fridge.
Yeah.
It's like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
you're weird. Moving on. He's a great character. Him and
Yes.
his like little like rain doll outfit is hilarious.
It's pretty good. One of the unfortunate things about this movie is that they got Radwimps to do music again for it, so there's probably some music about euthanasia and stuff like that or eugenics, excuse me, in this film somewhere.
I looked at the lyrics. I didn't see any.
I mean, it may be hidden. You never know with that dude.
Music's good though.
I have no opinion on it anymore after finding out that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to research that a little bit more, and I can't find anything else on it. It's really complicated, and it's very frustrating, and I don't know Japanese.
Yeah.
So it makes it really hard.
One of the things that's real weird about this movie, especially early on, boy howdy, is there a lot of product placement.
Yeah, there is.
Like,
It gets better, but it starts off pretty rough.
it's egregious at points. Like, it really feels like you're just watching a commercial for a bunch of things.
McDonald's.
Like, here's a McDonald's ad, an Apple ad. Here's these Honda vehicles.
Oh, I didn't notice the Honda ones.
Look at him using SoftBank as his phone provider.
Yahoo Japan.
Yahoo Japan. Like, it's so much. Like, obviously I think it wouldn't be as bad as this was like a live action film, because like you'd kind of just understand that's the case, because that's just the way movies work. But like, it feels just weirder in anime because like they have to specifically go for that.
Right.
Like, they have to specifically include that. So I don't know. It was like just overwhelming, especially at the beginning, because like it's just so much just being thrown at you constantly for like 20 minutes.
I personally think it's better when you get like knockoff names because it's funny to me. But you know,
and it's more creative.
It can be. Sometimes it's ridiculous, but
yeah.
it gets better though, luckily, because it is a bit egregious at the beginning.
Yeah,
I agree with you on that. And once I knew where you were, I was like, all right, so you saw the MacBook, right? Yeah, okay, it gets better then.
it's a lot. It's a whole lot.
The fact that I can pinpoint where you are and what product placement you're seeing is a thing.
That's not good.
But that's what I did.
Yeah. It's also weird to like have that first kind of like portion of the movie set in Kabuchiko, which is where like they set the Yakuza games. So like he's like moving around all these places, like, oh, I know where that is. I know that area.
Yeah, you said you liked that part.
I could pinpoint where that manga cafe he goes to probably is. So that was weird because I was like, oh, I know these areas from their fake versions. There's definitely a lot of scenes in like the first half of the movie. I'm just like, yeah, okay, this is where he's at right now. Okay, like picturing where he is and then picturing it on the map.
Which that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And there's a kitty called Rain.
Is the kitty.
The kitty called Rain is great.
Goes meow.
Meow. Gets fat.
Does get fat later on.
I love that they make the same facial expressions.
And just like it's like telling him to get out.
Yep.
Like, "Rrr,
It's like, I adopted you. What are you doing?
not anymore.
I'm his cat now.
You abandoned me.
I love that they just like Kay and the cat Rain get like super attached to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you brought him a cat and didn't tell me. It's how it happens, honestly. You just get attached to him.
Well, you want to talk about the plot of this film?
Sure.
I'm going to read from the Wikipedia summary. That'll tell you, that talks about McDonald's. In June 2021, first-year high schooler Hodoka Morishima leaves Kozoshima in order to get to Tokyo. When his ferry to the city is hit by a rainstorm, he is saved by Keisuke Suga, who gives Hodoka his business card because like he's about to fall off the boat, and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna grab onto you. Buy me food because I saved your life
and beer."
Yes.
Which I was like, how did that kid buy beer?
It's a boat.
Yeah.
International waters.
Guess it didn't really matter that much.
As Hodoka becomes broke and struggles to find work, he meets Hina Amano, an employee of McDonald's restaurant. That's what it says verbatim. She takes pity on him and gives him a Big Mac. That's me editorializing there. Later on, Hodoka finds an abandoned handgun in a waste bin he fell onto, and then decides to keep it for whatever reason. It's not smart.
Is that you also editorializing?
That is me also editorializing there. After tracking down Suga's business location, he meets him there and his niece, Natsumi, who he thinks is his mistress. Again, me editorializing.
Mm. Looks at her boobs.
He does. Suga hires him as an assistant at a small cult magazine publishing company where they investigate urban legends related to the unusually rainy weather in Tokyo. From a psychic, they hear the legend of a sunshine girl who can control the weather.
Which is not entirely true. Like, they write occult and, conspiracy theory type articles, but they're not, like, their own magazine or anything. And
no, they're like, they're freelance to other.
Right, and they're not specifically writing just on this weather phenomenon. Like, they write about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But right now, they're focusing on that. Anyway, continue on.
Hodoka sees Hina being intimidated into working at a back alley club. He scares off the club owners by firing his gun into the air, thinking it was a toy. He and Hina escape. She takes him to Yoyogi Kaikan, an abandoned building with a shrine on its roof, where he throws the gun away. Hina astonishes Hodoka by demonstrating her ability to clear the sky by praying. Hodoka finds out that Hina lives alone with her brother Nagi, and they have no adult guardian. Seeing how they are in financial trouble, Hodoka proposes to start a business with Hina with the ability of the Sunshine Girl, a job to clear the weather for events such as weddings and parties. They create a website to accept orders, and their business quickly becomes a success. However, when clearing the sky for the Jingu Fireworks Festival, Hina is shown on television, their site gets flooded with requests, so they decide to close the business. That they do all that.
They do take one last request, though, that's really cute.
Yeah, they take a last request from Keisuke. He's like, I want to go to the park with my daughter. And then they show up and like, I didn't realize it was going to be you.
So he's having issues with getting custody or even seeing his daughter. Mm-hmm. His daughter has apparently pretty bad asthma or just a really bad grandma. I can't tell which.
Could be both.
Could be both. I mean, she does have an asthma attack on film.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's a real thing, obviously. But the grandma's like, you're not responsible and you smoke and you drink and you can't have the kid. And anyway, she can't go out right now anyway. The weather's terrible. So he hires them to make the weather not terrible so he can hang out with his daughter. And the cool part about this is that like everybody gets to interact. Like the little brother hangs out with all of them and like they get to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And Hina and Natsumi? Yeah. They hang out on the bench and talk to each other. So like everybody interacts, like our entire cast here is interacting. Mm-hmm. For the first time, really.
This is where like a little bit earlier, Keisuke and Natsumi go and meet like this old shrine dude who tells them like, who has like this big painting mural of like weather gods essentially, mm-hmm. and like says like, oh, the Sunshine Girl is this one weather maiden, but she's a sacrifice for the weather. And then Natsumi tells that to Hina when they're mm-hmm. at the park there.
Oh, this is also where he finds out that she is his niece and not his mistress. Because like, you gotta tell like you're married, like this is a problem, right? And
he's just like what?
And he looks at her boobs again.
Yes.
Yep. I will say Alison Brie is the English voice actress for her, and she does a great job, especially with those like coy lines. Mm-hmm. She does a really good job pulling that off.
I was surprised when I saw that it was her doing it because I was like, I did not expect that, and she does a great job.
She does a fantastic job. Like, she's really, really good at pulling off those lines.
Mm-hmm.
She's got like just the right level of playfulness to her, and
Mm-hmm.
then like she pulls off the serious stuff too. It's awesome. Good
Yeah.
job.
After that, a detective with the police search for Hodaka as his family has filed a
Josuke.
search request. Yeah, it's fake Josuke because he has the
It's fake
pompadour.
Josuke.
It's really good. Yeah,
Well,
his family's filed a missing persons report, and also they found, or they had like a security camera of him pointing the gun at the minor yakuza dude essentially.
yeah.
And they're like, that's probably one of the guns that was smuggled in illegally. We should probably get that, and also find this kid and figure out where he put that gun, if he still has it or not. And then also his family filed a missing persons report.
Kill several birds with one stone.
Yeah.
I was also thinking when I saw this, I was like, you know, I really hope that Josuke didn't grow up and become a cop at some point, because his grandpa was a cop and he might be like motivated to do that. And I'm just like, Josuke, don't do that. And I just kept thinking of that every time I saw this kid. I'm like, are you Josuke? Don't be Josuke. Josuke's too good for this.
It's true.
But he does look just like a dollar store Josuke.
It's true. Officers arrive at the apartment where Hina lives with Nagi and interrogate her. Hina realizes that because they have no legal guardians, with their mother having died recently, social services are going to take them into custody. Which they do an interesting thing here where like Hina has told Hodaka that she's like almost 18.
Mm-hmm.
And like the cops are like, hey, you can't live here. You can't, a minor can't live without like a legal guardian.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of shield that reveal
Yep.
that happens later on in a way that like it still makes sense.
Yep, because she's not yet 18.
Hodaka visits Suga, who has also been visited by the police. Actually, it's the other way around. Because he comes to Hina's apartment to see him.
He drops off the little brother.
Yes. Suga fires him and gives him a retirement allowance, explaining
And hat.
and a hat, explaining that the police suspect him of kidnapping Hodaka. And then he's basically, I don't know if he tells him or not, but like he essentially is like, I think he tells Natsumi later on, like, I had to do that because like I'm trying to get custody of my kid and I can't look bad in any sort of way.
Yeah, he tells her later, because at this point he's just like, it's better for you right now if you just go home.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everything will be better if you just go home now. Like, it's all going to be solved. And he was just like, nope, can't do it. Which, one thing that they don't make as clear in the movie that's kind of sad that they don't make it as clear, because the light novel does, is that part of the reason why he doesn't want to go back is that his dad is very abusive.
That would be an a thing to at least mention.
Yeah, and so I was wondering when I rewatched it, I was like, I wonder if like the band-aids and stuff on his face at the beginning are because of that.
That would make sense, but again, like, I think the only thing that he says with reference to why he ran away is like, oh, it was suffocating there.
Yeah.
That's it.
It would make sense that in the heat of the moment with him like having the band-aids and everything that he would just leave.
Yeah.
But that is the given backstory on why he left, is because his dad was abusive.
Yeah, it felt weird that like they never really just addressed that at all.
And it also would make it more interesting in a sense that he gets close to Kay, because you would think that if this kid who is running away from an abusive dad like comes to this guy, that he would be a little bit more hesitant about it. But they end up getting like relatively close, and he seems to trust him for a while anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's part of why he's so adamant of like, I'm not going back, which is understandable. I just wish they made it clearer.
Understandable if you had that backstory.
Yeah.
Like without it, you're just like, I guess he just doesn't want to go home. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's being a kid.
Yeah.
Which it's kind of lame that they don't just throw that in there, even just like as a one line.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that would make a lot more sense to like certain decisions later on.
It would make his motivations make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And it would also make some elements of his personality make more sense. Um, so I did not know that when I first watched it, and then I read the light novel, and then I rewatched it. And I was like, oh, okay.
I'm glad we were going the Final Fantasy 15 route where you have to get 4 different forms of media to get the full story here.
Well, your name did some light novel stuff too, but
Yeah, but I don't know if it was like
and manga.
this egregious. Maybe, I don't know. I can't remember exactly like the differences between two, but like I feel like this is a pretty big thing to not include in one thing.
Mm.
The one thing that most people are going to see.
Yeah.
So.
But anyway, that's his reasoning that
Yeah.
he doesn't want to go back. So, he gets fired and he gets kicked out,
Mm-hmm.
and she's getting kicked out. So bad.
So they decide to run away.
Mm-hmm.
Except there's this huge storm happening in Tokyo, like heavy rainfall is happening. I think they said like there's like a news blast that like said like 6 inches of rain are falling in the last hour, and it's like, well, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
So like
and,
everything
like, the
shut
weather,
down.
Like the temperature's dropping.
Yeah, temperature
pretty
is just like
rapidly.
rapidly dropping, to the point where at some point it just starts snowing.
Yeah.
In August.
The water in the subway area is like at least calf high for them.
Mm-hmm.
So
They
it's wild.
They eventually try to like find hotels, but can't because they're all booked up, and also
Or they don't have IDs.
or they don't have ideas, and some people are like, "Are you guys just running away? What are you doing?" They eventually get accosted by the police, and they try to run away, and then Hodaka gets caught, but Hina tries to wish for something good to happen, and then the lightning comes down and blows a van up.
Yeah. That's an intense weather control.
Which that allows them to escape, but like also yikes.
Yeah, there's just like a giant explosion in the middle of Tokyo.
And then they go to a love hotel and take shelter.
And do karaoke and take a bath and eat lots of snacks. Which
Live it up.
That bathtub looked great.
Looks pretty alright.
I would be about that bathtub. It should also be mentioned, because it hasn't been mentioned yet, that at one point he decides that for her 18th birthday he's going to get her a ring.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's been carrying that around for a while.
Yeah. This is where he gives it to her.
Mm-hmm. That's why I brought it up.
And he's like, here you go. And then she's like, hey, look at my body. It's all water.
She asked him, like, what are you looking at? He's like, I'm not looking at you. I'm not. I will say that is very, very lovely animation.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that they did that with her body is very interesting. There is a little hint of this early, because she gets, like, for lack of a better word, yeeted into the sky at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think they show either like her hand or her foot or something, like it's starting to get watery, and she like hides it.
Yeah.
But yeah, now she's mostly watery.
Yes. She tells Hodaka that like she's the reason for the weather being the way it is. If she disappears, the weather will go back to normal, and that she's like, hey, take care of my brother and everything. Hodaka's like, no,
And
don't
cries himself to sleep.
go. And then she's gone.
Yeah, he cries himself to sleep and she disappears.
He wakes up and like him and Nagi are like, oh god, oh god, oh god. But then the cops show up in the hotel room and take them away.
Mm-hmm. We get a shot of her like in a field type thing,
Like on top of a cloud.
just like laying down.
She loses the ring.
She does. So then events are set into motion here.
Mm-hmm. So Nagi has to go to like a child protective service place. Hodaka gets brought in for questioning, but then he runs away because apparently all those cops are inept.
I mean,
and cannot stop a small child from running away.
Yeah, but he also comes across as completely bonkers at this point. Like the stuff that he's yelling, like they even say at one point, like, do we need to get him in like a mental checkup?
Yeah.
Because he just sounds like he's absolutely nuts.
Because they basically have to like ask, because like she's gone. He's like, where did she go? You were like the last people to be with her. What happened to her? And he's like, oh, she sacrificed herself for the weather.
And no one's gonna ever know her sacrifice.
And the like fake Josuke's just like, what have I gotten myself into?
I mean, that's valid.
It's very valid.
Uh, he also sees at one point, like when they're outside, that the ring like falls in front of him,
Mm-hmm.
and that really sets him off.
So yeah, he runs away. Then Natsume shows up, and she's like, get on the motor, on my scooter, let's go.
She also says that she could be like a motorcycle cop at one point. He's like, not after this. Meanwhile, younger brother is like breaking out of juvie basically,
Mm-hmm.
in the most hilarious way ever. Like his methodology there is hilarious because he utilizes the fact that he has lots of girls to help him out, and they're all like, "Oh my god, he's had so many visitors."
Like the girl who shows up to like help him is like, can't believe you would do this because I'm your ex. He's like, yeah, like come on, I need help.
They just like switch clothes, and like she throws a wig at him, and he just disappears. The other girl's like, I've never been here before, but I really need to go to the bathroom. Can you show me where it is? And like, I don't know how long she was in the bathroom, but like, they did a quick change.
They did.
But yeah, he just like shows up at one point in a dress. It's great. But yeah, there's some running from the cops happening.
So he tells Natsume where to go to like the abandoned building and everything because he thinks that's where he'll be able to get back to Hina. She takes him so far, but then like takes a jump and submerges her motorcycle, and it's like, well, you got to go on foot later.
End of the line for me.
Yep. And then he just runs across like train tracks until he finally gets there. He gets climbs up the building. Eventually he runs into Keisuke, who's just like, dude, what are you doing?
Turn yourself in. Like,
yeah,
you gotta end this.
Like they're going to.
He even slaps him at one point.
Yeah, he's like,
which
snap out of it.
Again, knowing like that he comes from an abusive household, having this dude slap him, like, ooh, yikes. But again, he doesn't know that, or if he does know that, then like,
yeah.
But he again sounds like a complete loony bird here, and Kay is like, yeah, dude, this is over. You gotta quit.
The police show up, or he tries to get away from Keisuke, who's like trying to stop him, and then rolls right into the gun, which is why I say this is very convenient. Points the gun at him and then fires off like a warning shot, which all the cops hear and are like, what the f-? So they roll in and like have all their guns drawn on him. And Keisuke's in the middle like, guys, can we calm down here? Calm down.
Let's not shoot the kid.
Let's not shoot this kid. He tries to get away, but then like they tackle him and try and hold him down. But then Keisuke's like, man, screw this. I'm gonna beat up this cop.
YOLO.
So like he beats up fake Josuke to let Hodaka get away, and then one of the other older cops shows up, tries to stop him, and then the like Nagi shows up and just barrels into this older dude. And is like, get away from him. He's able to get up to the shrine and teleports to the sky, finds Hina, and is like, hey, let's go.
And they jump into the sky.
Yep.
Did we even mention that Kay's wife is dead?
No.
Okay, Kay's wife is dead.
A lot of people are dead in this film.
Yeah. And so that's a thing. And that's part of why he's trying to get custody back and all that jazz. Anyway, continue. They're in the sky. They're holding on to each other.
She's like, hey, hey, if I come back, the weather's going to be bad. He's like, I don't care.
He says something to the effect of like, I'd rather see you than blue sky or something like that. I don't remember exactly how he phrases it, but it's something to that extent.
But then like they both are able to find their way back on the roof, and then everyone gets arrested.
And it starts pouring rain.
Yep. And then he has to go back home.
Yep. For 2 years? 3 years? I can't remember. I think it's 2 years.
But then it basically time warps to him like where he's graduating from high school. He's leaving school and gets stopped by two classmates. He's like, "Oh my god, they're gonna."
They're gonna confess. My first confession.
And they're like, "Did you really get arrested in Tokyo?" He's like, "Huh? What?"
There's several times throughout the film where he's like, "Oh man, is this my first time doing this?" Like he says that when he goes to her house, "Is this my first time going to a girl's house?" When he's trying to give her the ring, he's like, "Is this my first time confessing to a girl?" And then this time he's like, "Is this my first time being confessed to?" And this poor boy.
So
Anyway, he goes back to Tokyo.
He goes back to Tokyo. That's where he's gonna do
For
like
college.
college. Yeah. He meets up with Keisuke, who now has like an actual office and everything, and he's just
And
like,
assistants.
it's like, get out of here. Go find your girl, whatever. I don't care.
I got a
Stop
cat.
being dumb.
He basically says that, yeah.
Look at this cat. It looks like me now. It's telling you to get out of here.
And it's fat.
It's fat. Yeah, then he just finds her praying in the street, and then they hug. That's it.
Also, the fact that Tokyo is mostly underwater.
Yes.
We have a scene with Taki's grandma where she was explaining, like, you know, this is how it was originally, and you know now it's all sunk.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that he says in the interview. He's like, you know, I don't know that I can really do anything with Tokyo anymore because I sunk it. It's like, welp.
Well, you're already breaking your own canonical universe, so.
We do find out in the light novel, and I might have mentioned this already, but they do get married, Taki and Mitsuha, which is cute. But I still don't like this indecision.
Mm-mm.
Like she made the decision that she was okay with it. Like she wasn't okay, but she's like, you know, this is what has to happen.
Right.
And it happens, and he basically is just like, no. And he puts the happiness over like of like three people basically, so like him, Hina, and Hina's little brother, over everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not okay. And like I don't find that romantic at all.
No.
And again, it's an interesting comparison to Your Name, but also the little brother ends up like being friends with Kay and his daughter, which is cute. But yeah, I do think the final decision sucks.
Yeah.
I would have been mad if it were me.
Yeah, like that's just. Yeah, like you said, it's just real selfish.
Yeah. And like I also understand that, you know, he went to get her and that she's sort of still alive up there. But it's just kind of like, I don't know. Like I can't accept the idea of putting that many people like out of their homes and out of their jobs and like maybe killing them.
Mm-hmm.
For like a 16 and 15-year-old's romance.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, she's 15. She was lying the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't mention that, but
yeah, the cops tell him that once they arrest him. He's like, "What are you talking about?"
So I definitely don't like this part of the film.
Mm-hmm.
And I will openly admit that I don't like that final decision. And again, he says in the interview, like, I don't know how people are going to react to that. And we know from like 5 centimeters per second, like he can do like not happy endings pretty well. Because that one ends with them going their separate ways and like being generally okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like a happy romance ending. And I would have been better with this if he had like learned from it, like learned to stand on his own 2 feet, basically, rather than just like choosing for her and choosing for like millions of people.
Yeah.
But he is also a 16-year-old boy, and they do not make good decisions.
True.
But usually 16-year-olds' decisions don't ruin everybody's life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, I know you're saying that there's not really anything said about climate change, but like there is something here, and like selfishness and greed leads to unhappiness of many, many people here. And
Yeah,
that
but
is
like
literally
also,
the case.
I feel like that's like the easiest thing you could say.
It is. And I mean, like he does say that it is an inspiration and not like the actual purpose of the movie, but um like I don't like the idea of selfishness being like the positive good end of this movie. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Um I'm a big sucker for romance, and I think anybody who listens to this podcast knows that. Um but that part of it didn't do it for me. And um I absolutely agree with you that it is the weakest of those that we have mentioned in this podcast. Um, but I didn't hate it as much as you did. I just don't like the ending.
I don't like. I think as well. Like I don't think the romance is that good either. Like as a
I
romantic story, I don't think it really is that great.
It comes across mostly as one-sided.
Yeah. Which again, I think is kind of like the idea. Like he sure has his template of how to write a story, and like he really tried to force that in this. Because like I think you could make this film without it being like having that romantic edge to it.
Yeah, you definitely could.
But like it kind of just feels like it's forced in there in a way that like it just doesn't really work.
Yeah, I mean, it's not written as strongly. I
No.
will admit that. And like I said, it's written more one-sided because you get more of his perspective than hers.
Mm-hmm.
So there might be more feelings from her than we're getting, but we're ultimately getting his side of the story.
Right.
So, um, shrug shoulders.
Yeah. I will say like unsurprisingly this movie is gorgeous to look at in like animation wise.
Beautiful.
Like it is just
The little
incredible.
rainfish are great.
Yeah.
It's so pretty.
Mm-hmm.
I would watch an entire movie of like Kay running his little occult office thing.
Yeah. I
I would
think
watch an entire movie of that.
that would be the more interest. I would be way more interested in that story than what we got.
And I wonder if part of that is, you know, he's an adult running a business, having complications in his life, and both of us are very thoroughly adults.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, we might relate more to his kind of struggles.
Yeah.
Um, and she has a moment. She being his niece, who's like, you know, you're kind of like defaulting back into like childish behaviors here by drinking and smoking again. Like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Also, you're gonna catch a cold because you're out here drinking like a dumb. Um, but I mean, he's really going through some stuff. Like his wife died. He lost his kid. His business isn't doing very well. Like we hear a phone call of him like getting an article rejected, and he's like, you know, I've got other pieces. We'll try that. And you know, his office space isn't that great. Like it's an apartment office space bar. I don't know what it is. It has a bar in it.
But it's very cramped.
Very cramped, and you know, it flooded when the rain got high. I mean, it flooded a lot. Um,
Well, also he opened a window and just let all that water in.
which was so dumb, but he's also not the brightest crayon in the box. But you know, I see how we would relate more to like his kind of thinking than we would
Sure,
with the 16-year-olds kind of thinking.
sure.
And so I would absolutely love to watch a film of just those two and like him running that. Like I would love to watch more about that.
But I feel as well though, like he has been able to write more compelling, like younger characters that you
Yeah.
can understand and relate to. Whereas like with this, I don't think he does a good job with that.
Yeah, I mean, your name, both of those characters are written very well. And
Mm-hmm.
we've mentioned 5 centimeters per second. Like those characters, he goes from like very young kids to like adults and like I think it's like what elementary school, middle school, high school, and then adult that
Mm-hmm.
he goes through in that. Do I remember that right?
Sounds right.
So I mean that's a lot of cycles in your life there that you're having to write. Um, so yeah, I get that, and I think that the characters that really shine in this movie are the side characters.
Yeah, I agree.
Like every single one of the side characters, like major side characters, are very very interesting and well written. I wonder if he focused more on just that ending choice and like what that would mean, like if that's where he started.
Who knows?
I don't know. I watched the interview, but he didn't mention that.
Yeah.
But it would make a lot of things make sense if that's where his starting point was.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you'd have to build to that regardless of how you're going to do it.
Which doesn't seem great.
Like I said, I
But
have
also like that,
issues
if I,
with.
I as a writer, I that is not a way I would do any sort of writing, is starting from the end and going from there. Like that just seems bonkers to me. But like everyone has their own style of doing things.
Yeah,
So
and I mean sometimes people have like this is my big idea, and then they build around that.
yeah,
It's a common thing that people do, and I wonder if that's the case here. But I just I don't like selfish characters,
yeah, I think that's completely fair. And like
and
that's exactly what you have for a main character here.
yeah, like there's no way around saying like he sucks. He does. He's a sucky kid. Has great pants, but he sucks. And he is obviously like very stuck in a kid mindset of like this is how I make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I mean that can be interesting, but I don't like the final execution of that.
Yeah,
I would rather him have learned something.
but you're not getting that here.
No, you didn't. He didn't learn anything. He got a hug, and apparently, like no one who assisted him really got any kind of like consequences.
Yeah, I guess not.
Because it's like, did she get arrested? Did Kay get arrested? Did the kid get arrested? Like, there were a lot of people who helped him do this.
Supposedly they all did, but then like for everything he did, he only got probation until
Yeah.
he was out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
So
And I mean, he was obviously the worst out of all of them, but he was also a kid, so.
yeah,
And like, I've wondered who ended up taking in the little brother, because like, what I would love to have happened is that Kay would have taken him in, because that would have been great. And like, we know that they were hanging out, but I'd be interested to know like, where did that kid end up?
well, they'd have to take in both kids.
Yeah, it's true. They'd have to take in both kids.
So like,
And I can't see him taking in her.
yeah, it's another thing that just doesn't really have an answer to it.
Yeah. And I know that they wouldn't let them like continue how they were. There's no way.
Right.
Because now they know. They're like, hey, you can't live on your own. What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like it. We see them all get arrested, but we don't know like in terms of consequences what happened except for with him. But I think Kay obviously did okay because he's got like a sweet office and apparently getting his kid back. So
Yeah.
he probably didn't get much time, if any time at all, or get charged at all, even though he literally beat the crap out of Josuke. Not Josuke.
Fake Josuke.
Like he punched a cop,
Yep.
which like I like Kay, and that was probably a good move. So there you go. There's probably a part of this movie you like.
That part was all right.
Yeah, I knew I could find something you liked about this movie.
Well, I think that's going to wrap that up then.
Mm-hmm.
We talked some news, we talked a movie,
Mm-hmm.
and now we're going to talk ourselves out of here.
Goodbye.
Yep, that's it. Goodbye. So if you'd like more from us, go to seasonlimitcheckup.com or sac.cool, where you can find past episodes of this podcast and other podcasts like Season Limit Checkup and Jared Now Watch. You can also find columns and reviews on the site as well. Also, if you have not listened to the latest Jared Now Watch, 2-week hiatus for that podcast as we prep up for the next season.
Mm-hmm.
Important note.
Yep.
If you want more from Ann Ladium, go to annladium.com. She's got columns and reviews. You can also find us on Twitter, twitter.com/animecheckup, and you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/SACOVA. Buy us a slice of pizza, get access to unedited versions of the podcast and bonus episodes as well.
Da-da-da.
Next week, we'll talk about something else.
Yeah, I don't know yet.
It'll be something.
Meanwhile, don't suck.
Yeah.